Hello, everybody. All right, we're going to get started in just a moment. I know other people are coming in. I feel like for those of you who were able to get outside today, it was like there was like a little taste of spring on the Ithaca campus. So I know we have people coming from all over that are joining us tonight, but Ithaca had a little brief moment of spring, which was lovely. All right. I know people are going to keep on joining. I do want to let you know that I am recording this so that it will be posted on our media page, probably in the next week or so. So if you want to watch it again, you're welcome to. As you're joining, feel free to keep your camera off and your microphone muted for now. At the end, I'll pause and stop recording, and you're welcome to, show me your face and unmute if you want to, if you have additional questions. But do feel free to submit questions in the chat. I will do my best to answer questions as we're talking. It is interactive. I'm going to have some polls. Usually I use poll everywhere, but today we're going to just use the Zoom polls. And I will share all these slides with anyone who's joining me tonight. So if there's anything that you're like, oh, I wish I could like write that down or whatever, just know that I will send this to you likely tonight at some point. If not, then definitely tomorrow morning. But I am thrilled to have you all here tonight. I imagine more people will be joining us as we continue talking. Tonight, I should say, we're talking about LinkedIn. Really, this is a LinkedIn overview, and I know I appreciate everyone submitting their questions prior to our conversation. I know some of you are like really looking for like, how do I even start with LinkedIn to like, how do I continue building on my LinkedIn profile? So I will do my best to touch base on a lot of really good points, and we'll have some really great resources for you afterwards as well. But my name is Heather Fortenberry. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the career exploration coach with Cornell Career Services. And as I mentioned again, we are going to be talking about LinkedIn, one of my favorite topics. So there's so many great things that you can do with LinkedIn. What are we going to be covering today? Kind of broke it down into kind of some key points. So just kind of a general overview, how to create your profile. I am going to talk a little bit about how to build and leverage your network, as well as talking a little bit about that job search process and how to use LinkedIn to find those opportunities. But I do want to provide you with some of those additional resources. For those of you who are current Cornell students, you do have access to LinkedIn Learning for free, which is really lovely. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. And there are obviously a lot of resources, including meeting with our career services advisor to help you kind of hone some of those unique qualities about you so that you're appropriately highlighting those skills and experiences on LinkedIn and making sure that recruiters are seeing you. So absolutely feel free to continue to submit questions as I'm talking, and let's get started. So again, some of those goals for today: helping you build that profile, getting started, how to connect with people, how to use those additional resources so that you can find opportunities, internships, jobs, volunteer experiences, etc., using this really amazing platform. I like to generally start our workshop with just an overview of how we are building our workshops, but also how we interact with students and how we support you through this career development process. So you can see that we are kind of going off of this cycle. It is a continuous cycle, really focusing on kind of who you are, what are some of your strengths, your skills, your goals, through the exploration process, connecting you to those opportunities and other ways to really explore your career path, as well as that taking action through those application documents, resumes, cover letters, practicing your interviewing skills, and so much more. So, we love to see students. We also work with alumni. So hopefully we'll connect in one way or the other. I know some of you I've already connected with, so love to see you again. All right, I think it's really helpful. Actually, you know what? Let's go back just for a second. I'm going to launch one of the polls because I would like to kind of know a little bit more about who you are. I don't know if people can see that. Yeah, I see people already starting to see this. maybe you don't have a LinkedIn profile. It looks like some of you don't. I think oftentimes people have LinkedIn profiles, they're like, but I haven't actually used it. Talked to a couple students today who were in that category. And so maybe you're very comfortable with your LinkedIn profile and often use the platform. So that's great. I'm glad that, I mean, and maybe you're not really sure why you have a LinkedIn profile. Hopefully I'll convince you otherwise by the time this is over. So I'll just share this really quickly so that you all can see kind of who's in our session today. Just know that, yeah, you're going to be in lots of different areas, and that's kind of the point of coming to these sorts of things as well. Okay, let's go to the next slide here. So kind of to answer the why create a profile. There are lots of different ways of networking and connecting with people. LinkedIn just has the breadth. They have so many people who are using from all over the world. Recruiters are using LinkedIn, so there's lots of different job application. I mentioned internships, volunteer experiences. There's just so many different ways of engaging with this platform. You know, when we're working with students and alumni and talking about resumes, oftentimes there's going to be a limit for how much you put on that one piece of paper. If you're a bachelor, if you're getting a bachelor's degree, or even two pieces of paper, if you are getting your master's or an advanced degree. So this is a great way to kind of expand that online resume format where you can really include some really interesting components to better highlight projects or your communication skills or places where you've been highlighted, maybe in articles, etc. So it's just, there's a really great dynamic component of this platform. You can see that right there, 87% of recruiters rely on LinkedIn. I actually have a fun little screenshot to show you kind of from the recruiter perspective. So it might give you a little bit of context as you are creating your profile as well. But you know, you're here at Cornell, you're already part of the Cornell community. So, you know, if you're a student, connecting with those alums, connecting with other professionals, faculty, people who come to your classes, staff members, I always tell students, come and connect with me. You can go on right now on your LinkedIn profile and look for my name, Heather Fortenberry, and you could practice connecting as well. So lots of fun ways to kind of use it. It's really a great platform, whether you are, you know, ready to go in that recruiting process or you're just kind of starting and exploring. So we will walk through that a little bit more. So how to get started? Again, there's a couple of people who are joining us tonight who are just like, I've never, maybe you haven't even started a LinkedIn profile. I just put in like, it's, you know, you can obviously go in and just Google LinkedIn and it'll come up. But that's really basically how you're going to get started. The great thing about LinkedIn is that it's really going to walk you through a lot of these steps. So at least to get you kind of started, it's the platform is really encouraging you to kind of check a lot of those boxes to help you have a really strong profile, to help people connect with you, but also for you to connect with others. So you're welcome to pull up your LinkedIn profile as we're talking now. If you're just getting started, no pressure. Again, I will share these slides. It might be helpful for you to, you know, kind of when you're ready and in that mindset, when you feel like you have some time to go through here. But this is generally that like welcome page as you join in, as you're getting started. So again, some of the components of creating a profile. And some of this is like basic, but it's really important to think about like what email are you going to use as you're creating your LinkedIn profile? You will get messages that go to that email address. So using an email address that maybe you use more frequently is going to be valuable versus having to think every day, like I'm going to go into LinkedIn today to make sure that I don't have a message that hasn't been like read, for example. So coming up with which email address you're going to use, thinking about a photo for your profile. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Customizing your URL. Your LinkedIn URL, which you might be putting also on your resume in many cases, so that people know that you have a LinkedIn profile and can check that out. We're going to talk a little bit about that headline. Again, these are some components of that like initial profile, your about summary. So we often talk about this as like your personal pitch or your cover letter kind of blurb. We'll go into that a little bit more, how to highlight your experiences, and, you know, kind of some of the other components as you manage your LinkedIn profile. So those kind of like, as you're getting ready to create your profile, here are some of those components that you might want to consider. The picture, right? Your profile picture. I think this is one of those stressors where you're like, oh, does this look okay? Should I even include something? I don't have anything recent. What should I even put on there? How do I get a professional photo? And the quick answer to a lot of this is yes, you should have a profile as part of your LinkedIn. For those of you who are just getting started, it's okay for like, a little tiny bit, a day or two to just kind of let it go without that profile picture. But like when you have a profile picture, and if you don't, I'm going to give you some good resources for how to get that profile picture taken. You can even, if you have a smartphone or if you have a friend that has a smartphone, having them take a picture of you, with kind of a nice background. You can see some of these are clearly indoors, some of them might just be outside, but they're all an individual person. So you're not going to have a picture like maybe some other social media where you have like friends or family members or a pet. It's going to be you. This is your first impression. You do want to give that professional look, whether it's, a suit or maybe you're just wearing a nice top. But you do want to this is a professional networking platform. So you do want to give that impression that you are here to connect in a professional manner. Maybe unlike some of the other photos that you might have, again, for, some other social media that you might have. But you see that right there, that second bullet point, profiles with a photo get up to 10 times more views. Yes, right? You see a face, you know who you're kind of connecting with. In most cases that, these individuals look like they are welcoming and ready to connect with another individual. So yes, this is again, that first impression. There are, again, so this is a picture of me. Clearly I need to update. My hair is a little bit longer. But you can see there's a lot of different ways that you can, even after you upload a picture, which is pretty easy, you just kind of like dragging a photo into that component, but you can really customize it. You can include, you can see, you can crop, you can filter, you can adjust the lighting a little bit. So again, having maybe you have a great photo that did have a family member in it, but you're like, okay, how can I like that picture a lot. If I can crop out that individual, then I just have my individual person. Maybe that's something that you think about, or maybe you have other photos where you just want to crop out the background. But again, you've got lots of different ways of adjusting. You can also adjust kind of like review the visibility settings, which again, you click on that so that you can see some of these other components to really help you. You can see that you could, if you wanted to, and you're just like, what, I just want my personal connections to see my photo, or people that are in my network. You can see there's lots of different versions of it, or public. And so again, the public view of this is important to keep in mind, because if someone Googles my name, like that likely is going to be the photo that comes up along with my LinkedIn profile in the Google search. Some of this is just about your personal comfort. Again, if you're in that process of recruiting and you want to make sure that recruiters are seeing you, you want to think a little bit about, maybe it is just like all LinkedIn members, or if you're applying to jobs and you have your LinkedIn profile listed, maybe then you want to think about how you have this listing, that visibility setting. The background is kind of an interesting component. So for those of you who haven't created a LinkedIn profile before, the background that just is kind of like the default background is just a little bit of a generic kind of like bluish gray background behind your picture, your profile picture. Your background really is a great way for you to, again, kind of establish your brand. You can upload photos. I know myself and some like a number of people that work at Cornell might even have like a Cornell photo, because we work at Cornell. So it kind of like establishes that area, or even students. I've seen a lot of student profiles where they might even have, you can see some of these kind of more like graphic backgrounds that maybe kind of highlight them being a STEM student or being more in a business world. So this is a great way to kind of like just establish your brand a little bit more. And it does provide a little bit more of a unique view for the people that are looking at your photo. Again, you can see these are examples. They don't have people in them. They are pretty generic. They're not super distracting, but they do provide a little bit more insight into potentially who this person might be if you're using one of these photos. LinkedIn does have some different options that you can choose from, so that's great. You also, if you're a student, current student at Cornell, you may also have access to Canva, where you might even be able to like design a kind of background that you really enjoy, or have a photo that you want to incorporate. So again, just some fun ways of really highlighting your uniqueness. You all have unique qualities and your interests in a slightly different way. So the other side of this is oftentimes kind of that link that you might share. You might even put it in like a signature line so that people can click on it or see that easily and go to your LinkedIn profile. A lot of times we're recommending that students are including their LinkedIn URL, their customized URL in their resume. So when you first create a LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn kind of provides you with a default link, a URL. Oftentimes that URL might include your name and also like, I don't know, 7 or 8 numbers, random numbers that they have. And we really want to make sure that you have that customized URL where it's just your name. So it's nice and neat. Sometimes, there may be other people who share your name or a similar name. And so maybe you have your graduation year that you tag on to the end so that you're able to kind of create that URL that's customized to you. So to do that, typically you're going to be in your profile. You see that kind of, I've highlighted the edit public profile and URL. And when you go there, it's going to show you what this URL could look like. And again, what you see right now with just Heather Fortenberry, that's customized. I took out all the numbers. I took out some of the dashes. And it's nice and neat when I put it on my resume or I send this to others to connect with me. This makes it really easy for them to just kind of see that without all the other kind of default information that LinkedIn puts in. Then you just save it. The other side of another really important component of your profile is your headline. So right underneath your profile picture, there's kind of a title, a space for you to include more information. The default typically is going to be, for example, student at Cornell University. And that's fine for now, but this is another place where you can really be creative and even using keywords that might resonate with your industry. We just gave like a quick little example. Instead of just saying Cal student at Cornell University, maybe you expand and say a biology researcher at Cornell seeking an entry-level medical consulting position. Or maybe you even go a step further, biology researcher at Cornell, curious, maybe you kind of like highlight some of the other components, problem solver, and kind of leave it at that because it's kind of highlighting some of those key skills. This is also another challenge where you're like, what else can I put in there? What really describes who I am? Thinking about your professional focus can be helpful. Again, for now, as you're building your LinkedIn profile, especially if you're just getting started, going ahead with just kind of that default is fine. And then sometimes it can be really helpful to look at other people's profile, especially people who are in your industry. And sometimes that can really give you some ideas of like, oh, this is one way that I really want to customize. This is how I can kind of add something to my headline that just sets me apart a little bit more. I do want to mention that, especially as you're creating your profile, there are a couple of recent updates. One of them is a cover story. So this is something that you can do. You can actually only do through your phone, so through a mobile app. And I would encourage you all to think about getting the mobile app, the LinkedIn mobile app. It's another great way to kind of connect, especially if you're like at conferences, or again, if you're in class and you have somebody visiting, you can look them up, or maybe, you can actually add them to your network as well. But to do some of these recent updates, again, these are typically associated with your, like the very beginning part of your profile, adding that cover story. That's going to be something, it's a 30-second video, kind of like your personal pitch. A great way to also show and highlight your personality, but you would do that through your mobile app. Name pronunciation. This is such a great added kind of feature to this as well. This is also something that you would do through the mobile app. So I'll kind of show you, like you can see where it says add name pronunciation. So those two features you do through your mobile app. The other component is the preferred pronouns. And again, another really great feature to help people know how to address you, your preferred identities, et cetera. And that can be done through the desktop platform. So just kind of to keep that in mind. I think you can also do that through the mobile app, but in most cases, you're going to be creating your LinkedIn profile, usually on your desktop versus on your phone. All right, moving along. This is the about summary. So, this is one of the components in the LinkedIn profile that you actually add. And I'll show you a little bit about like how to add different sections to your LinkedIn profile. So as LinkedIn, when you're first creating a LinkedIn profile, for those of you who already have kind of an established LinkedIn profile, you likely know there's like certain things that LinkedIn is going to kind of walk you through, some of those basic components. The about summary is a very important part of your LinkedIn profile, but is something that you have to kind of like add to your profile because it takes a little bit of time to really think about what you want to say. And sometimes it kind of stops people from kind of continuing through with building your profile. So when you're thinking about the about summary, this is again kind of like that personal pitch. We talk about like the cover letter or a way for you really to highlight your key skills and experiences, what's motivating you. So oftentimes it's really helpful to kind of ask yourself, like, who am I trying to reach? Who's my audience that I'm really like hoping will resonate with what I'm saying? What do I want people to learn about me? My skills, my experiences, what drives me, what motivates me. And it's also a place to kind of incorporate your personality. So a great way to kind of like, who do they want to kind of like leave with knowing a little bit more about me? You could kind of ask yourself that like, why am I writing, or what is it about me? Where am I going? When do I want to do this? Sometimes students will say like, as a graduating Cornell student, I'm exploring opportunities. I'm going to show you some examples because it can be one of those really challenging areas to complete. But again, in addition to kind of some of those questions, you can ask yourself thinking about your own values and interests. I think sometimes including some examples like with like facts and figures, kind of like your impact or those accomplishments that you've had. I kind of think about these as like your superpowers. Again, those key skills that you really enjoy using that add value to really any organization. So here's some examples. So example one is kind of like the default. It's kind of like as you're thinking about the very basics. Sam Jones is a mechanical engineering undergraduate student at the College of Engineering at Cornell University. There's a couple of things that I'll say right off. First of all, you're telling a story about yourself. So putting this in a third person is not something that we generally recommend. The other component I would say about this example is that it's kind of repeating a lot of information that this person will already, as they're looking at a LinkedIn profile, they know that you're at Cornell University. They likely know also your major as well. So you're not really sharing too much more information. So this is one that I'm going to say we probably don't recommend because it doesn't really tell anybody about Sam Jones. Here's something a little bit more expanded. A sophomore business major at Cornell University with an interest in marketing, advertising, and social media. Seeking a summer internship to apply my experience assisting a company's branding needs through social media outreach, developing marketing plans, digital marketing, and conducting outcome research. Yeah, there's a lot of good information in there. And you can see that this is going that step further, really highlighting some of those key skills, kind of highlighting the direction that this person wants to go, kind of a personal pitch. And then this third example, I think really like checks a lot of those boxes that we're talking about. Talking in the first person, right? Because you're telling whomever about you, but going a little bit further into like maybe an actual example, and then potentially incorporating a little bit about where you would like to go as you continue your skills. So yes, I would say example number 2, example number 3 are good examples. You can see example number 3 really kind of provides a lot more information, a little bit more direction, and more of a introduction. Okay, so this is one of those places that absolutely as students, as you're building your about summary, come to career services, have an advisor take a look at it, but also look at other people's profiles. This is a great way of kind of getting a better sense too of like, what are other people saying, especially within your industry or the industry that you're hoping to go into? What are some of those keywords that you can incorporate that, like resonate again with the positions that you're looking at, or even the industry that you're hoping to apply to. The next section that often we're focusing on is the experience section. So LinkedIn is great. There's so many different ways of highlighting your experience. There's kind of like the work experience component. You can also add other sections like volunteer experience or project experience. And this is a really good way to go above and beyond just the, Cornell Career Services, career advisor. These are the dates that I work there, and really like adding more information. I work with students, sharing a lot more information about who you are. So these are just some examples, like highlighting all of your experiences above and beyond kind of like your actual internships that you might have, thinking about your co-curricular experiences as a student. If you're joining us as an alum, broadening that to, maybe other experiences aside from your current work experience, maybe you volunteered, et cetera, but showing really what you accomplished. So a lot of this is similar to what you might have on your resume, but again, you can add more to it. As you can see, you could add videos, or you could link research papers, or sometimes, again, you may have been highlighted in maybe a newspaper, you can highlight those articles. So that's a really like nice plus, again, as you think about this being your online resume version, and like really pulling in some of those components that will help you show what you've done. It can be really helpful as you are building this to really think about those transferable skills. Think about the kind of industries that you might be wanting to apply to. I think that can also help you edit a little bit more so that you're not just having like, I don't know, 15 or 20 different experiences, but really focusing on those ones that you really know have, highlight those transferable skills. And you can use either bullet point style or paragraph style. LinkedIn doesn't, default you one way or the other to kind of create that, those bullet points or those components, those experiences specifically. But I will say that usually I still encourage you to think about what's easy to read, because people are not going to be able to, in most cases, read like whole paragraphs about what you did in that role versus like the bullet points where it's really highlighting those key skills. And then the other part of this too is that you can see, this is like one of those sections that allows you to either turn on or turn off whether or not your network, the people that you're connected with, are getting notifications when you have job changes or you have any like special, work anniversaries, et cetera. So that's really up to you. This is one of those features that I'll talk about in a little bit too, to kind of really pay attention to, and you make that decision. I think it's really helpful to be strategic about when you're sharing and when you decide not to share. And you can see that you can toggle that on or off. So maybe sometimes you're like, yep, I want people to know. And then other times, maybe you're like, you know what, I think I'm going to keep this turned off because I might be changing a job. I don't want my current colleagues to know about any updates that I'm putting in on LinkedIn. So that's a good example of like when you might want to be strategic about that. Other components that you can add to your LinkedIn profile includes this creator mode. So this allows people to follow you, which is really interesting. And I'm going to show you just a little bit kind of like what that looks like. Sometimes people don't want to just like broadly connect, but you're able to follow. So that's a great way of kind of showing interest. It does also allow you to add some hashtag topics so that anytime you post things, you can incorporate those and people will get notifications. But you can also view and see like how many followers you have. Sometimes people will follow instead of connecting. And this is another place where you could add that to your LinkedIn profile. There's really so much that you can do in LinkedIn. And even if you're like, well, I'm not writing articles on LinkedIn, but I am sharing information about, for example, like career services. That's a great way to kind of think about, yeah, you know what, I want to turn this creator mode on so that that's something that I have available to me. And then as you think about other feature items, you can include posts, obviously, and it showcases kind of not only your post, but if you decide to write an article on LinkedIn, which is a great option. And certainly if you're like trying to highlight kind of your knowledge and or your communication skills, if there's certain areas that you really feel passionate about, that can be a great way to incorporate that into your LinkedIn profile. You can also incorporate links, and you can also obviously link to media and develop your own if you want to. So, for those of you who kind of have that creative side and or really want to highlight your knowledge in a certain area, or have been doing that maybe through research that you do while you're at Cornell or in your current role, this can be a great way to, again, add this to your LinkedIn profile. So this is highlighted as well. I'll also just emphasize that through LinkedIn Learning, there are some really great LinkedIn workshops that are hosted by LinkedIn. And so as you're going through some of these sections, if you're like, oh, I really want to focus a little bit more on that feature section that Heather talked about, you can go to LinkedIn and do a little bit more research and get a little bit more direction so that you can kind of utilize this platform as much as you want to. All right, one of the areas that often I think gets overlooked is the skills section. So this is another place where you are able to highlight some of those keywords that really adds value as employers potentially are looking for certain skill sets. You are able to add up to 50 skills on your profile. So this is a section you kind of, as you're creating your profile, you're going to be prompted to potentially add some skills. You might get some suggestions, but this is a place where maybe you start off, you add, maybe 10 skills. And then as you start exploring and seeing what other people are doing and what other skills they have, or as you're looking at different job descriptions, that might also kind of prompt you to be like, oh, I do have leadership skills. Oh, you know what? I don't have that on my LinkedIn profile. You can go back and add it. This is a great way to just kind of like always remember to kind of go back to your skills section, add things, maybe delete things, maybe reorganize them. But this is another great way also to allow other people to engage with your profile. So, for example, there is the skills and endorsements section. And again, you can, if sometimes I do have students who are like, I don't know, I don't feel like I have that skill. I feel a little bit awkward adding that. Well, they have different skill quizzes that you could take that will just kind of like, kind of maybe it makes you feel like you have that proficiency level because you went through that with LinkedIn. But certainly you can take some of those skill quizzes. You can also continue to add new skills. And then above and beyond that, you can click on that edit button, which I was just like that little pencil there, and it will give you the skills and the endorsement settings. In most cases, LinkedIn is going to default to have these settings all on a yes. Basically, what this does is as you connect with new people, they might say, oh, you just connected with Heather, endorse her for public speaking or presentations. And you might be like, yeah, okay, I could do that. And those are some skills that I might have on my profile that I'm hoping that other people will kind of check off like, yes, you do have those skills. And so again, it allows other people to engage. So you just want to make sure that they are all checked yes. Or if you decide you don't want to, that's also okay. But that's an option that you can kind of play around with and certainly customize. All right, so I keep talking about this like, oh, you might have to add this section to your profile. And I just want to make sure that you know kind of where to find that. So this is a screenshot of my profile. There's a couple different places where you can go ahead and add that profile section. Typically, it's going to be in the header. So that's one area, but it's also going to be in your profile. So if you ever are not really sure where to go, just know that it's there. When you click on that add profile section, you'll get some options. There are some core, right? These core sections that typically as you're creating your profile, LinkedIn is just automatically suggesting like add your education, add your position, add those skills like I mentioned. There are others that might just be recommended. For example, the about summary. That is a recommended section, but it's not going to be something that's just like automatically filtered in. So keep that in mind. And then there's like so many other that you see that additional section. Again, there's so many different ways of really incorporating some of your skills and your accomplishments in a way that you really can't have on your resume. So I would definitely recommend exploring those. You can always decide to take it off if you want to. I want to talk just really briefly about managing your profile. Again, I'm not going to go into huge detail about this, but I do want to remind you that there are some different settings that likely you do want to at least go through and at least be aware of the settings and privacy. There's a really great LinkedIn learning course on building your LinkedIn profile, and it goes in a lot more detail about those settings and privacy and those different kind of account settings. I will send you all that link as well, but you can also just go into LinkedIn Learning and type in building your profile, and you can find that information. But absolutely, you want to explore these settings and privacies to make sure that you understand what they entail. Usually I just kind of like touch base on a couple of key factors. You can see there's so many different ways to customize your privacy settings and make sure that your visibility settings and communications, et cetera, are all there. Your data privacy you might want to look at as well. For example, we talked a little bit about how to kind of turn off that notification of sharing profile edits. So again, like every time you make an update, usually the people that you're connected with, if you have this turned on, are going to get notified. In most cases, that's a really good thing, but sometimes you just want to be aware, and maybe you don't want people to be notified that you're making updates to your LinkedIn profile. For example, if you're looking for a new job, might be one of those areas. You might just want to turn that off for a moment until everything's ready to go. And then you could, turn it on again. So again, just kind of keeping in mind what you're sharing with your network as you're making those updates. I want to just briefly, we talked very little bit about some of these components of how you can really leverage your network and really engage with LinkedIn. It can be easy. It can feel a little bit sometimes like anxiety inducing to share some things on LinkedIn because you know that your community is seeing, but absolutely sharing updates, uploading photos. Again, we talked about like writing an article. I feel like that's a little bit more advanced, but it's such a great way, again, of engaging with the people that you're connected with. Continuing to build on your network as well. I think this is a really important thing to, now that we kind of walk through some of the steps of how to build your profile, kind of taking that step back and thinking, why am I building my LinkedIn profile? I'll tell you why you should build your LinkedIn profile, but you may need to kind of sit back and reflect on the why. Thinking about like, who are you connecting with? Who do you want to connect with you? Because as soon as you create a profile, you're going to start getting, potentially requests from individuals. Think a little bit about, who you want to who you want to connect with. You don't have to, accept every single connection. And typically, like I'll just give you an example of kind of generally how I think about this process as a staff member at Cornell that works with students in a professional way. If you're affiliated with Cornell, typically I will absolutely accept your request to connect. But oftentimes I will also ask you to at least include some sort of information in your connection request. And we'll talk a little bit about how to reach out to people and what you might include in that request. But I also have a lot of individuals from other schools and other students that maybe are connected with their friends who are at Cornell. Without more information, I generally am not accepting those requests. So that's one of my strategies as I think about who I will connect with and who I'm maybe a little bit more thoughtful about why I would accept those requests. Other great ways of kind of building your network, though, following companies and organizations. You'll get some of those feeds in your LinkedIn feed, so you can learn a little bit more about like what they're doing. If there's any cool updates. Sometimes jobs as well will be posted in that way. Following those influencers, and sometimes it's based on your interests. There's other different like LinkedIn groups that sometimes you can also ask to join. But so many different ways of kind of expanding your network, sometimes in more active ways and also sometimes in more passive ways, like following companies is kind of a passive ways of building your network. But it's a great way and you get so much good information. I put in request introductions in there and the recommendations. Again, I think sometimes that's a little bit more advanced as you feel like your LinkedIn profile is built up as you start building some connections. But what's fun about LinkedIn is you can see like, oh, I'm not connected to you, but I see that one of my connections is connected to you. So kind of this like first level connection, second level, third level. And what a great way. I've had students that I've worked with who've actually been like, oh, I see you're connected with Heather. Would love to talk to you a little bit more about your experience at Cornell and your career path. Great, right? Like you already have it kind of just is like another way to provide that way of reaching out. You could also ask that first connection, like, hey, I see you're connected with this person. Like, could you introduce me? And that's another great way of just kind of like circumventing the having to reach out to a person that you don't know and have someone else kind of make those connections too. And then the recommendations, that's generally going to be more like, based on your experiences with individuals, maybe their work experience or their understanding of your work experience. And sometimes people will give you those recommendations as well. Sometimes you could ask for recommendations too, to just like highlight your skills and their experiences working with you. All right, so connecting. There's a lot of different ways of connecting. We're going to talk very briefly about LinkedIn Premium, but you all have access to the free version. And honestly, that's the version I use, and I can use it in a lot of different ways without having to pay that extra. I'll give you some strategies about what you might want to do as you're like really actively in the recruiting process. But usually when you find an individual that you want to connect to, there's a couple of different versions that you might see. Sometimes it might be very easy because they have a public view. They don't have any restrictions on who can connect with them. And you can just easily click on the connect button and send a lovely message. Sometimes the message process or that connecting process is locked. You could follow them. That's a great way of just kind of like building that connection. Typically, in most cases, you can still click on this more button and there's often an option to connect, but it might prompt you to indicate how you're connected to that individual. I went to school with them or I worked with them, or there's an option it's like, I have no connection, but I still would like to connect. And then you still have this opportunity to add a note. Definitely, in any case, really customize the invitation so that the individual knows why you want to connect with them. You're more likely to have them accept that connection request than if you just kind of randomly are connecting. And, again, as you are following individuals, you can turn on or turn off posts. So there's always ways to kind of like, make sure that your notifications are manageable as well. All right, so let's do another quick little poll. Oh, and I see there's a question too, so that's perfect. Okay, so let's go and do this one here. So what have you used LinkedIn for in the past? Just curious, and I'll look at those two. Yeah, so great question. Someone was asking if you're a transfer student, should you include that information in your about summary? You could absolutely include that if you want to. Again, sometimes it's like that nice connection with your other institution. I think it just kind of depends on what, again, as you think about what you're trying to say and who you're speaking to. Certainly your previous college likely is going to be in your education section, whether you attended there for a semester or a year or 2 years. So you'll still have also that connection there as well. So different strategies that you can think about for sure. So yeah, thank you for asking that question. And great. The second question I have for you is, what have you used LinkedIn for? It looks like some people have used it for the job search process, some for building network, career exploration, and a good number who haven't used it yet but are planning to. Love it. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Oh, I'll share those results for you all too, so you can see. Good. All right, so let's continue on here. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to continue to build your network. This page is like one of my favorite pages to talk to students about when we're talking about career exploration, but also a different strategy for connecting with alumni, Cornell alumni. Again, if you're a transfer student, you likely could go to your undergraduate, whatever your other institution was, and do a similar sort of thing where you go to the Cornell University page. And I would just say, literally, I go to the search and I type in Cornell University. I go to the page. Likely you're already following if you're a Cornell student and if you're a Cornell alum. Then you can see on this page, well, first of all, we have over 300,000 alums that are connected on this page. That's a lot of individuals. But when you click on the alumni tab, what's kind of fun about this is it's going to actually take you to, well, you can see, there we go, 300,000. It's going to give you this option to really basically search alumni. LinkedIn has changed things a little bit in the past couple of years, but they still have this great kind of functionality. They used to show like the top 10, but now they show the top 5, which is totally fine. But you can see that you have this ability to search, and then you can see where they work. You can see where they live. You can click on that little next arrow. Then you can see what they do, what they're skilled at. You can click on that little next component as well. But what's nice about what they're skilled at, and you can see actually that you can add skills also. But again, as you're searching, like let's just say you go into that search bar and you type in research. The system's going to filter based on that search word, research. And so what they're skilled at likely is going to look very different if we type that in than what it looks like now, which is just, I haven't even typed in anything in the search. So it's a really fun way to explore. But if you're going into research and you're like, oh, look at all these, what they're skilled at. And some of those skills you forgot to add to your profile, and you know that you have them, right? You always want to be truthful and honest, but that can be a really great way for you to add some skills. Let me just look at this. How do I explain this difference between what's the difference between using LinkedIn and Handshake when connecting with a Cornell alum? Absolutely. So Handshake, which we aren't going to talk about too much tonight, so I'll just mention Handshake is Cornell's job and internship placement platform. So there are some cases where, those employers are Cornell alums, either that work at that company, or they own the company. And that's really kind of the way that you would apply for those opportunities. And it's nice to know that employers have gone to Handshake and checked the box that they want Cornell students to see those experiences. LinkedIn, you can also use LinkedIn for a job search and internship search. And we're going to look at that in just a moment, but everyone's looking at LinkedIn. Whereas Handshake, only Cornell students are looking at those jobs posted in Handshake for Cornell students. Other institutions use Handshake, but those students are likely seeing different types of jobs based on what the employer is checking on that box. Hopefully that answered that question. Really good question. But yeah, you can use LinkedIn also to find opportunities. It's just that everyone, again, it's global and people are using LinkedIn from all over the world. So yes, they are all accessing those jobs and internships that are posted in LinkedIn. I typically encourage students to really use that like multi-pronged strategy. Definitely use a Handshake, but yeah, also use LinkedIn. There's also ways to kind of access and find alumni through the jobs that you may be applying to. All right, so this last little tab, I just wanted to show you as you click on that next button, now it has like what they studied and how you're connected. So again, a really fun way to explore. Once you find those people or you find that kind of like list of kind of specializations as you're searching, as you scroll down a little bit, then you can see the alumni who are associated, who have those keywords that you just like typed in. It's a really fun way to explore. And again, also connect with those individuals. All right, so messaging is a big one. I know that this is like one of those stressors because typically when you're messaging, especially if you aren't yet connected with that individual, you have limited space to message. So one thing I do want to mention is that if you are connecting with people on your phone, typically there's going to be a default, and that default is like, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Pretty like generic, right? So oftentimes I will encourage you, like, you know, unless you're like, hey, Heather, can I connect with you on LinkedIn? And we're like talking to each other. Yeah, you can just like add me on your phone. But if you are trying to connect with an alum or somebody that talked to you in your class, you likely want to sit down at your desktop or your laptop and actually formulate a little bit more of a customized message. So here's one that's a little bit more like, and we have our career fair next on the 15th. So maybe this is something that you might respond to a recruiter. Dear Jen, it's great to meet you at the Cornell University Career Fair on Tuesday. I look forward to staying connected with you. Sincerely, Heather Fortgood. Or something even more, right? And again, you have some limited spacing. So you might get to a point where you're like, oh, you don't want to have like multiple paragraphs, but this is like a couple of sentences. It definitely gives a little bit more background of how you met that person, what you're interested in learning. This is a great quick little message that you might send to an alum or to someone that you want to connect, especially as you're exploring careers. Again, I'll share these slides with you all after this, so you'll have this. All right, so we've touched base on the job search process a little bit. We're not going to go into this too much, but I do want to make sure that you know that this is a great way also to search for jobs and internships. Basically, you're going to just click on the little job icon, which is right there, the little briefcase, and that's going to pull up a search function for you. Once you type in a word, consulting, let's just say, and press enter, then you're going to see all of these other kind of filter options, date posted, experience level. It's a great way to kind of filter things a little bit more. And you can also set alerts. So once you find kind of those filters that really work for you, this is a great way to just kind of set those alerts, and then you get messages to the email that you created your LinkedIn profile. So don't forget about that email. This is also another great way as you're going through, and I think, we just had this question a little bit, but yeah, like PwC, of course, there's 48 Cornell alums that work there. And what a great way, maybe before even applying, that you might reach out to ask a little bit more about their experience there. They're Cornell alums. So what a great way, you already have this connection. It's a really great strategy for kind of connecting with people prior to applying. Or even after you've applied, oh, I just applied to a position. I'm just like doing a little bit more research and wanted to, talk to you a little bit more about your experience there, your career path, your position. Other components too is like following companies. If you're applying to a company, make sure you're following them on LinkedIn. Again, sometimes you get great updates. Sometimes you get some really interesting information. We had a student one time that there was like some big merger, and right before their interview, they saw that like notification on LinkedIn right before they had their interview, and they were able to like seem like they were very relevant and up to date on the news. That's like a very specific situation, but you could see how that could be really beneficial. So again, you can follow, you can see jobs for those organizations as well. You can see if there are Cornell alums that work here, or any of your connections, right? It's more than just Cornell alumni, it's also your connections. That's a great way of like seeing that information as well. One other side of things, I think that, again, depending where you are in your job search process, so kind of reflecting on that career development tool or the career development model, thinking about like, what, I'm really ready to make sure that people know that I'm open to opportunity. So there's a couple different ways of doing that. One of them is like on your profile, going to the settings and privacy and making sure that you have like your like kind of the function turned on for notifying your network that you are open to work. You can also on your profile kind of click on that little like show recruiters that you're interested. Then you can click on that, and then it's going to actually prompt you to say like, who do you want to know? What kind of work are you open to? And you can customize that information too. And save that. Oftentimes I would say like have everybody in your network see that you're open to work, not just recruiters, because those other individuals might be really maybe more willing to find those connections or realize that they have opportunities in their company, and they'll reach out to you. All right, so again, kind of, this is just another example. Who are you open to? Sometimes students will ask about that like little like header that says like open to work. I mean, I think if you're already indicating that, through LinkedIn that you're open to work, then go for it. You don't need to necessarily have that little circular open to work on your profile as well. But options, lots of options. Again, as you're thinking about the job search process, as you're looking for jobs, oftentimes they will like list recent job searches or different recommendations to you. That can be helpful too, but usually those job alerts will pretty much do the job on that too. But again, another benefit of using LinkedIn, it just gives you this really like vibrant and dynamic system that helps you as you're in that job and internship search process. Ooh, this is that screenshot that I wanted to share with you. So again, from the recruiter side, this is another good example of as you're building your about summary, as you're thinking about your headline, as you're thinking about the skills that you're adding. Oftentimes recruiters are going to a page where they're like really checking off different components that they're looking for. And that's how they might find an individual that really meets a lot of the criteria that they're looking for. Students will ask me sometimes like, oh, a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn. That's great, right? Like you could absolutely have a conversation to learn more about the position, to learn more about the company, maybe reach out to some Cornell alumni who potentially or other connections who are working at that organization. But it could happen. We talk sometimes about like scams, job search scams, etc. So make sure that you're never giving out personal information. Doing your due diligence. If you have questions, you can absolutely come to the career services office and ask more questions. We are not managing LinkedIn, we manage Handshake, but we can give you some strategies and some additional information to make sure that you are, you're being thoughtful about the process, especially like, again, never giving out personal information. Okay, so moving along. We talked a little bit about LinkedIn Learning. And again, as a Cornell student, you have access to this. Cornell pays for it for you to have access. In my follow-up email to you, I will send you a link that you can access. But basically on the Cornell IT website, there's a lot of great information on how to add LinkedIn Learning to your LinkedIn profile so that you can access it. Or if you don't have a profile yet, how to access it through kind of like through the LinkedIn and lynda.com site. But this is a really great tool. There's thousands of courses that you can access. Highly recommend it for sure. And again, because I have my LinkedIn Learning connected to my profile, it's just a little button right on the upper right-hand corner of my profile that I can access at any time. All right, we're wrapping things up. I want to just touch base on a couple of things, and then we're going to talk about some resources, and then I will stop recording so I can answer some questions. The biggest question I get all the time, should I purchase the premium version? And my quick response to that is I would absolutely recommend that you try not using it first to see what capability you have. And typically the answer is you have a lot. You can do a lot without the premium version. I mentioned before, if you are actively in the recruiting process, you do get 30 days for free. I would kind of hold on to that 30 days until you're actively recruiting for that full-time job. And then sure, go ahead if you want to try it out, but make sure you turn it off so that you're not paying it if you don't want to. Questions about what I include, what do I exclude? This is going to be very personal. We do meet individually with students, and this is a great way for you to have your LinkedIn profile reviewed. But yeah, sometimes really, again, it's thinking about like what's relevant, what skills, what experiences do you want to make sure are highlighted? Yeah, those are good indication. How do you find those industry keywords? We have some really good suggestions and ideas on our career development toolkit, which I'll show you in just a moment. But also look at other people's profiles, look at job postings, look at company websites, and you'll start seeing some of those same kind of keywords. Analyze, collaborate, teamwork. Yeah, that's usually a good indication then to kind of pull some of those words into your experiences or how you're talking about who you are, etc. So some of those great resources that we have here. We have the Career Development Toolkit. This is kind of like your one-stop shop. There's a lot of more information also in that networking module. Highly recommend it. CUE Links, in addition to LinkedIn, CUE Links is Cornell's networking platform, allows you to connect with Cornell alumni who have volunteered to be part of this platform. The platform makes it very easy for students to reach out to Cornell alums. Alumni can't search for students, but they can participate when a student reaches out to them. You can look at their profile without them knowing. It gives you kind of this ability to be a little bit anonymous until you're ready to connect, but you can definitely explore, you can message them, you can also request meetings. So a really great tool, highly recommend joining and or exploring. Okay, so some next steps. Create your profile, update your profile if you haven't done that in a while. Start connecting with other people. I mentioned, feel free to connect with me. I hope you do. Happy to look at your message and give you some feedback, but also it's good practice. Come in and get your profile reviewed. That's a great way to just get some feedback as well. And make sure that you are customizing that LinkedIn URL and really thinking about like how you want to include that URL in some of your professional documents as well. We, in our office, we have a profile picture kiosk that you can schedule a 15-minute appointment. It's self-serve, so you're basically in our kiosk and you can take as many pictures as you want in that 15 minutes. Email them to yourself, crop them out. You've got a nice professional photo there for sure with a nice backdrop. So this is a really good, especially if you're like, ooh, it's time for me. It's like literally down the hall from my office. This is a good time for me to get a new professional photo. It's really easy to use. So do use this resource. Or again, if you have a smartphone or a friend has a smartphone, it's another great way to, kind of explore that. Instagram, we always are posting some really great things. So do follow us. Another great way to be engaged with our office. Tomorrow I'll be doing a workshop on how to talk to strangers. We'll talk a little bit about LinkedIn tomorrow, but mostly we're going to be focusing on kind of some steps and strategies. But there's some great resources and great workshops coming up. So again, our university career fair is next Wednesday on the 15th. And I know we covered a lot of information in a very short amount of time, but I do love feedback. So if you could take 2 minutes to scan, I will include this link in the email that I send to you as well. It's anonymous, I don't know, but all of your feedback will help me make this presentation better for next time. And thank you all so much for joining me tonight. It's been really a pleasure sharing more about LinkedIn. I am going to stop recording right now.